Let us begin with our discussion that we are having regarding to how the mental events and how the mental events carry the things with different conceptions in our mind. Our mental events, which we need to distinguish, they carry some sort of causes. And among the causes that what makes the mental events to work on, we have discussed yesterday that present stimuli reaching to the mind through the sensory nerves, and in cooperation with this, the past stimuli is associated with them, and then the mental events take place. Or the second set that usually takes place in understanding the mental events, how it takes place, that the state of the organism, it needs to, or its readiness to respond to these kinds of stimuli that are appearing. With these impulses which arise in our mind carry their own characteristics, carry their own character. And these impulses which arise take their character and their course from the interaction of the two different sets that how mental events takes place we have talked about. And we must keep a clear distinction between these two sets, that these are the two sets through which the mental events usually work. Now, these two sets of mental events, because as I said you yesterday also, that when we try to understand any poem, because when we read a poem, we try to understand it, and there are certain mental events that take place when we read certain poetry, when we read certain things, especially poetry, because poetry carries similes, metaphors, and all those things, and that's why when we read all those things, the immediate sort of picture we started to create in our mind regarding to that particular thing. And this is what I. Richards is trying to explain, that this picture which we try to create with the use of, with the understanding of the language that we hear, that we read from the poetry, we start to create certain images, and those images are blur. Mind try to create something which is blur, and those events with a stimuli, present stimuli, that is making you to create a sort of image in your mind. And there is certain image that is in the mind already. So it tries to collaborate with that particular image, and this collaboration will give you a complete picture of the poetry. And that's why there are certain recorded things in mind where the present thing is going and attaching with it. So all those things that are getting there, if this present stimuli reaches to certain wrong places, certain wrong signals, then the image which is expected to get will not possibly be part of that particular image. It will not carry the same sort of image. And this most of the time we experience when we read any poem. That if some critique analyzes it, somebody analyzes the poem, then we start to understand, oh, this was the meaning of that poem, but I carried certain different meaning in my mind because the impulses that reach to my mind, the stimuli which carries those things to sensory nerves to my mind, those has reached to certain wrong place, and that's why a wrong image, a wrong understanding has taken place. That means this thing, how it reaches, how it gives a clear cut picture is still confusing. It is not very much clear that how it images, how it makes, how it creates, how it brings the images. Who played a crucial role in making these images in mind when we try to understand any poem? And these two sets of factors, that the present stimuli reaching to mind through sensory nerves, and in cooperation with these, the effect of past stimuli is associated with them, and then we can have a clear cut understanding of that particular thing. Or on the other hand, you have quite different factors, state of organism, and it is there already. It requires something to stimulate it. It requires something to respond it, and it is its requirement that once it touch to it, it gives you a clear cut understanding. It gives you a clear cut picture of the things. So the relative importance of these two sets, two sets of factors of that varies enormously from each other. How it varies? For example, a hungry man, a sufficiently hungry man, if you keep in front of him any type of food, he will eat immediately. He will eat almost anything which can be chewed or swallowed. Now, the nature of the substance, if you look within these limits, has very little effect upon his behavior. If he's eating, if he's swallowing anything, it has nothing, it has not related to his behavior, that why he is behaving like this, because he is hungry. And as he is hungry, he is naturally eating the things which are in front of him. That is a behavior, that has nothing to affect his behavior, overall behavior. But by contrast, a replete person who is not hungry, whose stomach is full, or who is replete, he will eat only such things as he expects that those things will give him pleasant taste. He will not chew or swallow anything that is kept in front of him, as a hungry man used to do. He will swallow, he will choose the thing which he feels, which he thinks that this thing will give me a taste. Or he may think that the thing he will take, or he will put it in his mouth, or he will eat, which will give him some sort of benefit. For example, medicines. After full meal, your stomach is complete, full, you are satisfied with all the food, but there is a need, beneficiary need. For beneficiary purpose, you have to swallow a pill, medicine. You will eat it, you will take it. Now, this behavior, the second behavior, where he took a pill or where he is eating a thing for a pleasant taste, this behavior depends almost entirely upon the character of his optical or olfactory stimulation. what sort of stimulation he is getting. For that, he has done. The hungry man does not have any choice. He will eat whatever comes in front of him. But a man who is having all the food with him, this man will take the things for his test. Now, when he is taking for his test, it is his behavior. The first one is not his behavior. First one is his need. Now, if you understand this, what I. Richards is trying to mention, what I. Richards is trying to say, is that impulses owes its character, and impulses as it owes to the character to its stimulus. It stimulates the things. It makes you to understand it. It makes you to behave accordingly. And when it is making you to behave accordingly, because if you are hungry, your behavior is something different. If you are a replete person, your behavior is something different. That means impulse owes its character to its stimulus, and or to such effects of past accompanying or connected to stimuli, as we have seen to it, as we have revived it. Already the things are there, the past records are there, and those past records are ready to respond once it is stimulated. Who will stimulate in case of poetry? The language. The language will stimulate you. It will make you to simply get out of those things, try to bring out those things once again back with us. And as I. Richards, as we have seen it, and even we have talked it yesterday also, that the term it as a reference, it is a sort of reference, you will say, my friends. How this term can be connected, or how this term can be considered as a reference, because all the mental events, as I said yesterday also about conscious and unconscious, all the mental events that occur in the course of process of adaptation, when I'm reading certain thing, I'm adopting that thing, and when I'm adopting that particular thing, how my adaptation will take place. There are certain mental events taking place, and this adaptation is somewhere between stimulus and response. There's already the thing there. It is waiting for the response. Now, thus every kind of, you can say, mental event has its origin in stimulation. Every mental event is having its origin in stimulation. It has a character, it has consequences, and all those things are taking place in action, or it is trying to adjust. It's a sort of adjustment for the sort of action. The same example, I'll repeat it to make you to understand the things very easily. Hungry person. Now the stimuli of hunger is already there, and how it will respond, everything is already defined there. In the mind, it is defined there. Once the stimuli of hunger reached to the mind through the sensory nerves, it started to react. And once the thing comes in front of us, it is the character of that stimuli, how to behave, how to react, how to work out. And as soon as the thing is kept in front of the person starts anything that is possible to chew or swallow, he starts chewing and swallowing the things. This is already a mental event, has its origin in stimulation. It requires something to trigger off everything. Your even blink of your eyes, blinking of your eyes. How will you react when you touch to a very uh, hot thing? There's a hot glass of water which carries a glass carrying hot water in it, and once it is a metal, once you touch it, it will give you a feeling. How will you react touching to the fire? The stimuli is already there, the stimulation is already there, the mental event is having all this stimulation with it. Once it requires this trigger to operate, and you start to operate, you start to behave like this. Or a person who is replete, who is having his meal, who is having his food comfortable, but he has to take medicine for his beneficiary purpose. This mental event is having there, it is in the stimulation that yes, there is a there you require to take something which is good for your behavior, good for your health, you have to take it. Once the pill comes, you are not even thinking that my stomach is full. I have taken so much of food. I've gulped so much of food. How can I take this pill once again? I don't have any space, but you have to, because you know that it is for your beneficiary purpose. So any stimulation for the sake of completing the action or for the adjustment of action, it has got its origin, and it knows its consequences. It has its own character, and what it feels like in those types of cases in which we feel or we think that this is how I have to behave. All those things are known are kept in is consciousness, are known as consciousness. And in many things we don't feel. Those things are in unconscious state. And when those things are in unconscious states, why certain events are in conscious and why certain events are in unconscious, nobody can able to solve it. It's a mystery that you cannot force, or you cannot say that okay, this thing needs to be in conscious and these things need to be in unconscious. Nobody can able to find out that what is in conscious and what is in unconscious. You don't know even today what is conscious and what is unconscious to you. These things which are stored there, these things which are kept there, those things which are kept there in conscious or unconscious, these things stands, the things which are kept in conscious or unconscious, those things which are kept there are, you can say, property of mental events. These are the properties of mental events which we substitute for thought or cognition. This thought occurs in my mind. Okay, how this occurs? What is the process of occurring the thought in your mind? How this thought has entered into your mind? And have certain cognition. As I said, if I ask you to touch to the fire, how will you react? If something is very cold, if you touch something very cold, if you have take ice in your hand, how will you react to that? If somebody put ice in your shirt at that back, well, how will you react? This is a cognition. And to behave like this, how it is been stored there? Who stored there? If somebody slaps you, how to react? Who stores that reaction? This is a mystery. Where it is? It is unconscious or conscious. So all those things which are kept, they are the properties of mental events, properties for mental events. And for those properties, we have used a word called thought, or you can say cognition. We substitute it for mental events, the word called thought or cognition. Now, it is what I. Richards is trying to put it, but it is plain that the internal, independent internal condition of the organism, what is the condition, internal condition of that particular organism, usually intervene to distort the reference to the some degree. Reference the properties of mental events which are there. We don't know how many properties we are having for our behavior. Those are the references. The certain independent internal conditions, they may distort the references. And if it distorts the references, we are not able to find out any pleasure or satisfaction out of it. A very simple thing, my friends, to realize, to understand that when I read everything, I'm not able to get a sort of pleasure because of it. I'm not able to get a pleasure out of it. I'm not able to even feel satisfied because it has not even made me to, it has not stimulated me. That's why I'm not getting any sort of pleasure out of it. But vary of our needs, they can be satisfied if the impulses are left undistorted. If the impulses are undistorted, I feel satisfied because that was the reference which is already stored there in my mental events, which I can call it as a thought or a cognition, which has already been kept there, and that's why what I feel, what I think, that okay, this has reached to that particular place where the thing is already there, so it gives me satisfaction. Yes, this is what it is. But if the thing is not there, and if you try to get it, it will not give any sort of satisfaction or pleasure. A very interesting process to understand. Because usually we never ever tried to understand that how this enters, how this triggers the understanding of the words which are appearing into the poetry through language. And that's why I. Richards is trying to build up the whole idea in front of us. So what he's saying, that there are things kept in mental events, what we call it as thought or cognitions. Those are properties of mental events. Conscious and unconscious. I've analyzed all the things. I hope that I'm making it very simple for you to understand, because it's a very little bit of complicated process that I. Richards is trying to elaborate as a psychology used to deal with it. Now, bitter experiences. Bitter experiences has taught us to leave some of them alone, to let them reflect or connect them or correspond it with external states of affair as much as they can. Because these bitter experiences are undisturbed as far as possible by the internal states of affairs or our needs and desires. Bitter experiences in our life. How will you react to bitter experiences? Bitter experiences are not searching any references for the mental events. Let me make it very simple for you to understand. Bitter experiences, we left them alone without taking any support of the mental event. I'll make it again a little bit simple to understand. Make it. I will give one example of bitter experiences. You are failed in examination. Now you don't have any mental event or property left in conscious or unconscious. So when you are failed and you are not having any reference for it, how will we react? We said that okay, we try to, in our simple words, we start to blame to the external states, external things. How will you react? How will you give your excuses for that? The excuses which we used to give are nothing but the external states, because bitter experiences are always left alone. Bitter experiences does not have any place in our conscious or unconscious mind. So what you do, you try to uh, simply let them reflect or correspond it with external states of affairs. The examiner is not good. He doesn't know my language, he doesn't know my style. That's why he has given less marks to me, or he failed me. Or if you come to know the news of someone very close to you, dear and near, if he dies, and then you come to know that why he dies because of heart attack. So we start to put the blame of death on the external states of affairs, that if he will take to the if somebody will take him to the hospital, he may survive, or if he will get such type of injection, he may survive, or if he gets a type of medical treatment as early as possible, he may. We try to correspond it with external states. We try to correspond it with someone who is not there. And that's why bitter experiences are always left alone. And then we try to connect, we try to reflect or correspond it with the external affairs as much as they can. You want to remove all the things from you, as if you are not responsible for those things. You try to put all the things, and this is a very common human behavior, routine human behavior, you will find out, my friends. And I, Richards, as a psychologist, trying to say that you are trying to put all those things related to the external affairs as far as possible, that it should not disturb your internal affairs, it should not disturb your mental affairs, mental events. If it disturb the mental events, what would be the position you will be supposed to call as a mental patient? Your mental condition would not be good. You have to keep in some asylum. So we try to keep it away, undisturbed. We try to make the internal affairs to be undisturbed because of this. Because of these affairs, because of the needs, because of the desires that we have, which we don't have anything which is with us. So we don't want our internal affairs to be affected, internal affairs to be disturbed. Now, if you see very carefully, my friends, in all of our behavior, whatever we behave, our behavior can be distinguished stimuli. Our behavior itself is a distinguished stimuli as we receive. How we receive, there are various factors for that. You cannot claim or you cannot say that is one factor. Various stimuli we receive, and all the activities humans used to do is because of those stimulus and impulses. And how we use the way in which we use them, we use the stimulus. An impulse or stimuli comes to your mind. Uh, if I make it a very simple process to understand that how we usually carry the things. How will you come to know that you are hungry? The stimuli passes, the stimuli receives by the mind through sensory nerves. Please understand this process. It is through the sensory nerves it is going to the mind, and mind it starts to react, and there is references in the mind that when the stimuli of hunger reaches there, how will you react? How will you behave? And then the way you use them, use this stimuli. You try to search for food. If you're thirsty, the stimuli reaches to the mind through sensory nerves and you start to search water. The way you use those stimuli, how you use it depends on you. And how it works as per the references that we stored in our conscious or unconscious mind. The references stored in conscious and unconscious mind. There are certain behavior known to us are unconscious, the certain behavior we are not familiar, we are not known to, we put it in unconscious. What we receive, it may be any kind of stimulus. Any kind of stimulus we can receive. Very easy or simple thing, let me put it in front of you how the things usually mind works. I think I have explained it in the first semester also when I'm teaching you structuralism. At that time, I have talked to you about the process of mind, how it works. Every stimuli has its own characteristics, and we react accordingly, we behave accordingly. As I said you in the first semester also, the mind is divided into conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. And always, at most of the time, the subconscious works as a sensor board. If you are very angry and you want to hit someone, your conscious mind, your subconscious says, okay, go and hit him. And conscious says, no, no, no. No, don't do this. This is not accepted in the social framework. You cannot beat him. So when you sleep at night, in your dreams, you start beating him. So whatever stimuli we receive, whatever sort of simile we receive, any kind of stimulus, but only when the reaction we make, the reaction we make to it tallies with its nature and varies with it with varies with it in quasi independence of the uses we make of it. How we tally those stimulus tallies to its with nature, what sort of nature this stimulus belongs to and how to react to this stimulus. And when you have quasi independence to the use of that stimulus, we try to find out the reference which has occurred there. How in this case, how this person behaves, how we used to behave, or how I behaved earlier during that. A reference we try to search. The reference is already there, the reference occurs there. And as soon as the reference comes, you start to compare that action of that stimuli with the reference that is with you. This is what you do when you don't have anything in front of your eyes. When you don't have anything in front of you to visualize. And that's why most of the time we used to say that in audio visual cases the thing seems to be simple to understand. Because what I Richards is pointing out that the visual images, for certain references there are visual images available. For those mental properties, those to whom visual images are of service in understanding, in considering complex matters, they find this images as convenient. And at this point, they try to imagine a circle or a sphere which is constantly bombarded by minute particles, minute stimuli. There's a visual image. Please, this is again a little bit of mental process that I'm talking about. If certain stimulus which we receive does have visual images available, those visual images are helping to understand, to consider the matter, and we find it convenient to understand the matter because of that visual image. Now this visual image, imagine this visual image as a circle or a sphere, and this circle is continuously bombarded by minute particles. Those are stimuli, because the picture is already there. You're watching that particular picture, and the stimuli is continuously attacking, bombarding over that particular picture. Now, within the sphere, maybe pictured complex mechanism. But this complex mechanism is continuously changing for reasons. And there's nothing to do with any sort of external stimuli. There's nothing to do with external stimuli. There's a picture, complex mechanism is pictured there, and this complex mechanism of picture is continuously changing. It is not changing because of the external stimuli. It is changing. Now, this changing in the minds, you have visualized one picture. This picture makes it very simple to understand the complex mechanism. Now the picture is continuously bombarded with stimulus because you have your own picture and you have seen some picture. Both the pictures are associated with him that is trying to give you pleasure, but the stimuli is continuously bombarded with certain stimuli to you. And when it is continuously bombarded to you, uh, the picture that is in your reference, the picture in your mind is changing continuously. Now, this change in picture has nothing to do with the external stimuli, but the change in picture, the mechanism which is changing the picture that is in the reference, conscious or unconscious, these sorts of mechanism are opening little gateways to whom? They are opening little gateway stimuli, selecting certain stimuli, which stimuli is to be allowed to come in and to give the effect. Please understand this. This is little bit very interesting process. When you're watching a picture, I'll make it very simple by giving another example which we are familiar. For example, when we are reading a play, and when you read a play, Hamlet, you have your own picture created of Hamlet in your mind somewhere. Okay. And one day you got a chance to watch the performance of the play Hamlet, or you watched a movie either based on Hamlet. Now, the picture of Hamlet which you have created in your mind and Hamlet which you are watching in front of your eyes, they're not going to be the same. There is some difference. So, the external Hamlet which you are watching and the internal Hamlet, your stimuli is saying that which Hamlet is very proper. And you are trying to find out the relation, the difference, the similarities. And because you have seen in front of your eyes, which you have to believe, now this observation is changing Hamlet's picture in your mind, which you have created after reading the text. Now, the external stimuli is not making you to shift. The external stimuli is not making you, saying you that, okay, change the picture. Nobody has said that, okay, you start to change the picture of Hamlet. What the picture you have created of Hamlet in your mind needs to be the similar as you are watching in front of your eyes. No. This external stimuli has nothing to do with the changing things. The reasons those images are immediately changing in your minds. And when those things are changing in your minds, these changing things are opening different sorts of things. So how this is that what sort of thing I should take it from the visualization of Hamlet that is in my mind. I think I remember that I have given you a very interesting example of your age. That when you try to understand, as I said you in the classroom also, that if you check wallets of any boy in a classroom, you will find out he used to keep pictures of any leading actresses of Hollywood, Bollywood, any you want to say, for whom that is considered to be the parameter of beauty. Girls having portraits of various actors, players, they have their own parameters of beauty. When you start searching your life partner, at that time you try to apply those parameters. And after looking to your life partner, if you try to find out, if you try to apply those parameters to it, you will not find suitable for that. So the picture in your mind started to change. And the idea of beauty you started to change with it. Now you are trying to take the stimuli from the thing which is in front of you and try to change the image that is in your mind. So this mechanism where you are changing, continuously changing, the complex mechanism is continuously changing, and with this change, for reasons which has nothing to do with that external stimuli, but this is allowing the picture which is in your mind to open certain gateways and try to capture certain things, what things the stimuli should take, which stimuli you should take, and try to make this portrait very comfortable. Now, so far as these convulsions, the subsequent convulsions are due to the nature of the impact of stimuli, and to the lingering effects of that impact, which have accompanied similar impacts in the past also. Because every picture has to be changed. And this impact is changing. The past impact which have your mind, this past impact is simply you are trying to accompany it with this past impact. So these convulsions are referential. These convulsions are taking because of certain references. So the convulsions are referential. This has certain reference to change. It is not changing simply because it has to know. Look at the whole development of human age. When you are at school, the things which you like most in school may not have the same thing to like in your college life, may not be the same when you enter into your other life at your advanced age, and when you become old may not have the same likes as you have in your school days. So there are convulsions, and those convulsions are referential because there is some sort of reference, there are certain changing pictures that are going on. So convulsions are referential, and so far as they are due to independent motions of the internal mechanism themselves, the reference fails. Because if there is an independent motion of internal mechanism, then the referentials are failed because you don't find anything suitable for that, so you start accepting it. Now the dramatic change, this kind of dramatic image may possibly be of the convenience to some. It is convenience for some. By those who distrust such things, it may with the advantage to it may with the advantage be disregarded that they are having this uh, thing, that they're distrusting it. Now these things are not introduced as a contribution to neurology, please understand this. And it is in no way a ground for the author's view that what he is saying, it has nothing to do with uh, the medical or clinical analysis of mind. It has nothing to do with neurology. Please don't immediately start to feel that we are the students of medical science and we are studying certain minds and neurology and neuroscience. No, no. It has nothing to do with neurology. It is the thing that we need to understand, that how references are being created in mind and how references are being changed in mind. It is complete idea that I. Richards is trying to give us about the references that are part of our whole understanding. And this is how I. Richards is trying to bring out this understanding comfortably to all the readers. Now, how these references interfere, how these references make us to think, and how we reach to the process of thought, and how this affect the language, and how it is related with language. We'll continue this discussion in tomorrow's lecture.